an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Fleabag, Season 1, Episode 2. In this episode, we get to see a little bit more of Fleabag's relationship with her weirdo, sad, terrible boyfriend. And, I hate it so much. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Gabriela for commissioning this episode. Gabriela's in the chat. Hi, Gabriela. So this week, I just feel like this is the kind of show that you want to cover with a drink. So I brought a hard cider with me, Dark Side by Bishop's Cider Company. And I'm going to be sipping away and getting a little bit of a buzz on while I discuss this show because it just fucking feels appropriate, does it not? Goodness. So, guys, the primary thing, now, y'all can correct me. I have just been sort of calling him the boyfriend in my head. I feel like he was called by a name when she talks to her sister. So I don't know if I don't know if that was really what happened or if I just made that up. But if y'all want to supply me with his name, Harry, thank you, Gabriela. The thing with him is so weird because it feels like such a high school relationship. And I think that's the point, right? Like there is just a vibe of such deep immaturity and people who you really just want to ask, like, don't you have better things to do? That's always what I feel when I talk to people who have this kind of thing going on. And by this kind of thing, I mean the, like, obviously manipulative garbage that isn't actually a satisfying relationship where you're, like, connecting with a person. It's you and somebody who you keep trying to one up. And it's a weird, like, I have had this dynamic before, but it was in high school. And so, the previous episode, I was commiserating on some of her experiences regarding sex and, like, her understanding of herself. But this episode, it's going to be a lot less compassionate and a lot more, holy shit, bitch, what are you doing? This is the kind of thing that, like, I really strongly am a person who doesn't want to deal with drama in my everyday life. As much as I love watching messy drama from the sides, there is nothing like a fucking, like, Facebook thread that goes awry that you get to, like, follow. Remember that guy that it turned out that he was having affairs with a bunch of women? That sort of shit. All that kind of drama. When you're watching it from afar. Love it. Feed on it. It's the best. Drama in my life is so exhausting. I do not understand how people live the kind of lives that have sustained drama in them. It's one thing when you're 20, even up to like 25. Yeah, you've got energy. Okay, it makes sense that you would have the energy to both try to create a life and be super fucking dramatic and extra about everything. But, like, once you get to a certain age, if you're going through this shit over and over again, I can't help but see it as your hobby. Like, that's what you do for fun now. That's who you are, is a person who enjoys that kind of shit. And you think you don't enjoy it because there's nothing like a person who has endless drama trying to say that they hate drama, because that's what they always say. They do. That's like in the book. And there are so many opportunities for things to like not go the way they went, for that person to not make the choices that they did. And it's like they've lived so long enmeshed in the drama that they fail to see the less drastic options available to them, because those seem almost like inaction because they are so much less extreme. And this whole back and forth with him, this is what I mean when I talk about it seeming like you always want to one-up somebody. Because it's not just that she knows he's going to be back. It's the utter smugness of knowing that he's going to be back. Like, this is honestly, if we're looking at it like he doesn't understand things the way that she does, which it feels from the outside like that's true. It feels much more like don't get me wrong, there's a moment where he like has said to her, "You're not like other girls, you can keep up," which is, I have had almost that exact sentence said to me. And I swear to God, I wish that I had understood back then what disgusted me about that sentence so much. It was one of those things like, when you're younger, you know something is gross, but you don't really have the vocabulary to like express why, you know? And there were so many moments of men complimenting me by acting like I was a different type of woman than other women, and me feeling uncomfortable with that and not really understanding why, because I understood that they thought they were complimenting me. And now I'm like, oh man, if only I had been able to rip that guy apart when I had the chance. But the whole thing with him feels like he seems like he has no self-worth and is super vulnerable. And she exploits that over and over again. Like, she feels like the abuser in the relationship based on the way that we see her predicting exactly what he's going to do and how he's going to react to things, and the fact that he'll just keep coming back and that she won't have to change her behavior at all. There's the smugness, that's where that really comes from, is this vibe from her of like, oh, I know that I'm not going to ever have to really change. He's really upset and sad, but I don't think that that's even like a factor. It's just how long can he hold out before he inevitably comes crawling back to me. And it's weird because people can be in just toxic relationships that are abusive to one another. So I think once we begin to like find out more about what's going on, I think that is certainly going to be what's revealed, that it's going to be like a two-sided thing. But because we only get to see her internal monologue about the situation, I keep looking at the two of them as if she understands more what's actually going on than he does. I mean, he does do things like leave a little plastic dinosaur in the house and then pretend that he forgot it so that he has an excuse to come back. But that's also like, I don't know. That's toxic. Is that an abusive thing to do? I wouldn't say so. But the way that she's treating him, I feel like is like, we're getting on the borderline abusive area there for her. It's just like the kind of emotional thing that it's like I guess just toxic is probably the easiest way to say it. But, oh my God, you guys, what we see of the two of them, what it seems to come down to based on the opening of this episode is she's horny and she is tired of not getting laid consistently. I'm going to back up and talk about the actual opening of the episode. So the very first scene is so strange. She's on the tube and the song Sail is playing and everybody's commuting and nobody's looking at their phone, which is the first thing for me that pointed to the fact that this scene was not happening the way that it looked like it was happening to her. There's one guy that's like doing a crossword. But other than that, nobody's looking at their phone. And I was like, unless it's, 1998, that doesn't make any sense. And as we hear the song, every time they say sail, all the people around her sort of convulse as if they're in terrible pain. It is a really, really weird scene, guys. I don't know what to make of this. She ends the scene by saying, I think my period is coming. But I can't tell, is this supposed to be like her emotions struggling to come out all because like she's on the verge? Is that what it's supposed to be? What a weird bit. What a weird bit. So when we go to the credits and come back, she is at her sister's door. And I was really wondering, like, what the hell is she doing here? And it turns out her randomly stopping by like this is not something that happens. So her sister acts really weird about her being here. And she asks to see her sister's husband, I think Mitch, is that right? Who evidently sells art, Martin. And Martin is super familiar to me, you guys. Who is this guy? His face is recognizable, and I cannot figure out who this dude is. Brett Gelman from Mad Men, Curb Your Enthusiasm. I never watched either of those. He was on The Office. I don't remember that. I don't know what I know him from. Maybe it's just like he's been in GIFs and shit that I've seen. I'm looking at all of it because they have Amazon X-Ray, which is, I wish every fucking service offered this. But you can like hover over an actor and their profile will pop up and you can click through to see everything that they have been in. But yeah, I haven't seen any of this other stuff that he's been in, so I don't know. So Austin says the reporter in season 2 and 3, the guy from Stranger Things. Oh, I don't even remember a reporter. But okay. Yeah, that's probably it then. Thank you, Austin. So yeah, this dude, there's this wonderful bit where she's positive because they walk in. Oh my God, you guys, I actually have a little story. She walks in and he slams his laptop shut. And Fleabag is positive that he is watching gangbang Asian porn on his computer and that he got caught. And there's certainly a vibe to me, because he doesn't get up from his seat, that he probably was watching porn. But as it turns out later, when she opens her computer, or his computer, when he leaves the room, he was looking for a gift for her sister. And she's more disgusted by that than if he were watching porn, which she would be. It really makes total sense. So she has this statue for him, and he says that he'll take 10% of the sale, but she doesn't actually know anything about the artist and isn't like there. She accepts that he'll take 10%, but there's no estimate on what she could get for it, which I was a little bit surprised. Like, I know this isn't the point, but she really needs money, and her stepmom said something about it being worth thousands, and you would think that she would have mentioned, I was told it was worth thousands, because I have no idea what he would sell this for. It could be like 50 pounds, you know? Like, I don't know. But yeah, he seems to, like, as soon as he sees it, there's a vibe to him of immediately knowing that this is worth something. Like, he seems to, as much as he doesn't know the artist, sees the inherent value in it. And she says that she stole it from a market, which I found really funny. She doesn't even say she found it. She says she stole it. And I don't know why she would bother to say that. Like, she just throws shit out there, I'm realizing. Oh man, there are people like this. Okay. Sip a cider, then a story. What I meant earlier when I said he slams his laptop shut. One time, my mom was visiting, and she was staying with me and Brendan. And she and I were out, and I said something about how, like, okay, well, we can stop at home and grab that and then head back out. And she said, we're probably going to catch him rubbing one out or something. And I was like, oh my God, Mom. Because she made jokes like that all the time. And we walk in the door and he slams his laptop shut and grabs a couch cushion for his lap. I am not kidding. He was sitting right by the front door on the couch. jerking off while my mom was visiting us. And he knew that, like, and we had a long porch that we had to walk down with windows the whole way until we got to our front door to unlock it. I don't know how he didn't notice us coming, but it was just one of those moments where, like, nobody could pretend that we didn't all see. We couldn't act like we didn't know what had just happened. And my mother was just fucking cackling to herself because it was so obvious and he was so embarrassed. Oh, God. It's one of those, like, we have an entire house and we have a house guest. Go in the goddamn bathroom or the bedroom. Jesus Christ. What are you doing? So she asks him too, not to tell Claire. And he says, or what? You've got nothing on me, princess. And she says, or I'll tell her you're watching gangbangs. And he says, please don't do that again. And I wasn't. But the way he says, and I wasn't, it sounds like it's not true, but the fact that he says, don't do that again, evidently this has happened, and I would love to know how she got the information the last time. But yeah, when she opens the computer, there's just like a Claire pendant that he's looking at. Disappointing, she says. So, as she's leaving, her sister catches her trying to steal toilet paper, which feels very 2020. And her sister asks, did you patch things up with Harry? And says it in a way that just really sounds like she's absolutely expecting the two of them to get together. And when she says, no, we're actually broken up, her sister says, I'm sorry. I know that he really used to make you laugh. And I feel like that's one of those sorts of things that, like, the stereotype is to say something really insipid like that because you didn't like a person and you're trying to find a kind thing to say about them even though you don't actually like them very much. And that's one of those things where I'm, like, not entirely clear if that's actually what happened. Like, if her sister is just behaving like that, or if I am projecting my own shit onto it, because I have so many friends who are with people that I don't really like. And if they broke up, I would be hard pressed to say something about how much of a loss it was. Like, I could totally sympathize with their feeling terrible about it. But I personally would be like, haha, fuck that guy because he sucks and you deserve better. But her sister, I feel like that's the kind of thing Fleabag would say to her sister, but not something that Claire would say to Fleabag. You know what I'm saying? Her sister's clearly much more concerned with, like, social mores and trying to be appropriate to the situation. And she would feel that that was not appropriate, which it isn't. But I just kind of wonder how much of this, because when she says, I'm sorry, there is a sense, like, of feeling sorry, truly. But I can't imagine that she liked him. I mean, the first episode, we've got Fleabag talking to the guy on the train or on the bus, and he says, she's, like, talking about all of the shit that actually is great and says my family loved him and he was super affectionate. And I took that all to be literally true, but maybe she was just fucking with him and that was, like, the point. I just really felt like most of that was actually true. And he took it as a joke when he shouldn't. So, yeah. She says, I like Harry. I like his songs. And I'm like, do you? I don't know. So then we have Fleabag arriving home. And she looks around the apartment. And everything is gone. He has stripped the bed. He left the pillows. But he took the pillowcases. He took all of the sheets and blankets. He took everything out of the refrigerator. Guys, can we take an aside here? Let's look at this apartment. This is one of those things where I don't know whether to be, like, disgusted or whether I should be disgusted in another direction. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. That was a very convoluted sentence, but I'm going to screen share right now to the crowdcast for those of you who are here hanging out with me. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, because this is a full tour, basically, of her place. We've got about 1.5 feet of counter. We've got a 4-burner stove, but each pot that goes on that stove, in order to fit 4 of them, would have to be like about 7 inches across or less. We have a tiny refrigerator that's got 2 shallow drawers on top, which I assume are the ice part. And it doesn't even come up to her shoulders. I know she's tall, but nevertheless. We get another shot of it when he's on the floor crying and sobbing, because she talks about how he always cleans when they have a breakup. And this is kind of what I mean about like the abusive thing. Like, he's clearly actually feeling horrific here. And she's fine with that as long as he cleans the place. She doesn't care. I mean, it doesn't feel like she cares. But we see another angle of the kitchen, and there's just like a counter with an open space underneath for a couple of stools, and not even cabinets under there. And we've got some like open shelving on top and a really small sink area. And that is it for the kitchen. And when I say I don't know whether to be disgusted in one direction or the other, what I mean is, I don't know if I expect too much because I am an ugly American who wants so much room, and people all over the world live in much smaller spaces, and it's just kind of an entitled American attitude to expect to be able to have a giant fucking kitchen with a center island, and, you know, or is it awful that like most people live in an apartment, or can afford, really, not even live in an apartment. A lot of people like in cities would live in apartments this size, where you have tiny versions of full appliances, a tiny stove with an oven that's like smaller than a toaster oven, because it has to be like, you know, it can't even be as wide. Do we think that that's like reasonable to want a bigger kitchen, or is it just too much? Should we be more satisfied with smaller stuff? Should we be happier with less? Are we the problem? I don't, you know, I just feel like I'm looking at this place, and like, I know that my place, when I lived in London, I didn't even have a stovetop. I literally shared, there was like, every apartment was equipped with like a mini fridge, and I think we had like a microwave and like a burner, but there wasn't an oven, and if you wanted one, you had to use the shared kitchen, which was out in this like central area of the house, which had been cut up into 3 flats, I think. Really tiny. So I didn't even have like these half appliances. My fridge was smaller, half the size of that one, like it was a mini fridge. And I paid £2,100 per month for my place. It was obscene. It wasn't even in central London either. It was in Brixton. And when I went and looked for places, when I like toured London looking for an apartment, this place wound up being the best one, because the rest of them had the toilet in the kitchen. And I'm hand to God, all of them did. And I don't know if it was just like the price range that I was in, that was considered a common thing, but the whole place was fitted with wall-to-wall carpeting. And yet there was a shower, like a booth, in the middle of the kitchen area / living area. And the carpet around was all like molded up and disgusting. It was the most horrific thing. And that was just like, you know, like that was like £1,500 a month for a place like that. I paid more to not have moldy carpeting going right up to the fucking shower. I don't know. But then, I see that kind of thing. I'm disgusted that we're paying what we're paying in this tiny little, and then I'm like, do I just want too much? It's just one of those things. You never get an answer. How little can you be happy with is really the question. And I don't feel like answering it because I feel like I've done what I can with very little for a long time, and I would like more. And anyway, I'm sorry for that total segue, but I just really got distracted when she was showing us around the place because like the two of them lived here together, and it just, that is not enough room for one person, Jesus. Ms. T says it's London. Everything is tiny and old is like the fucking key there too. Yeah. Gabriela, I've seen tinier in DC too. It's the sad part of living in cities. And that's another thing, Gabriela. It's like this place is tiny and yet it's fairly roomy, really. Like we see the bathroom and it's like a full bathroom with a tub, and they have like a separate little dining area. I didn't have that in mine. I had a bed that was lofted, and underneath it was like a desk that I could also use as a kitchen table. And that was it. There was no couch. There was nothing. No furniture could even fit. Anyway, okay, I'm sorry, guys. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen here. So there's this moment here where she like feels like she looks really good and she's about to walk past this guy and expects him to really just like fall all over himself, hitting on her or checking her out. And instead he walks by her and says something about how it's the walk of shame. And has anybody ever had that sort of thing happen? I feel like I would pull that guy down to the ground by his hair and just smash his face into the fucking cement. I really would. What the fuck? Just because you didn't get laid last night, dude. So we have this moment when she's at work and she's like watching this dude who is working on a paper or something and trying to get his attention. I think she finds him attractive. He's pretty cute. He's not bad. And I hadn't really noticed how everything is guinea pigs in there. I don't know how I missed it. But it turns out that this was a thing with her and her friend. And I don't know how this show can manage to be incredibly, like, sardonic and not... The whole point is that she's trying to avoid being emotional or vulnerable in any way. And yet they can jump into these scenes where there is no hint of that. And it makes it so incredibly effective that you don't... There's no need for anything overlaying it to manipulate the audience. We have just been so fully infused with this like acidic sarcasm that when the lack of it hits us in a scene, it's like the sweetness is all that's there. Does that make sense? So this scene where we see her giving her friend the guinea pig, it turns out like this was just a complete surprise gift that she didn't ask for. There was no like reason behind it. It was just a weird thing that she gave her friend. And the reaction of her friend and the fact that she completely rolled with it and was so excited about it, and that turned into the guinea pig thing, which became the theme of the whole restaurant. I don't know, guys. That is just so sad. There's something about her looking around and seeing all of the stuff, that's been hung on the walls. And she even has a guinea pig with a little bow around it for her apron. It broke my heart so bad. It really did. I wasn't ready for it. And I think that's going to be a thing. Because this show really is sad. I mean, the fucking banner image for it on Amazon is her walking down the street with like mascara streaked under her eyes because she's been crying. And that's what's so terrible about a lot of like comedy is that it comes from trauma. And that's something that's kind of been coming up with Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which I'm also covering, is like a big theme of that is learning when you need help with mental illness and getting better and trying to be a better person. And unfortunately, that results in a show that's slightly less entertaining to watch, because that's the part that's like amusing, is seeing people at their worst and what they're willing to do. And when somebody's trying to be better, it's not as interesting to watch sometimes, unfortunately, because it feels a little bit too real, too ordinary. And this show is, it's sort of like when you sit back and look at how many comedies, especially sitcoms and stuff, are all about bad people. That's why watching people do awful things that result in insane consequences, that's what's fun. And cutting to her being emotionally vulnerable with her friend, and then seeing all of these, like, her friend standing on the side of the road, and she has this expression on her face like she's just been crying, and she is about to step into traffic. I can't buy what Fleabag's version of the story is here. Because her assertion is, my friend found out her boyfriend was cheating. She decided that she was going to get, jump into the bike lane because it would result in a non-fatal injury that would cause her boyfriend to come to the hospital to try and see her, and she wouldn't let him see her, and that would be his punishment. But there is something about the look on this girl's face here that makes me think, I don't know that's what she actually intended. I mean, it might be, it maybe just was, and it went horribly wrong. But I don't know, man. It may have just been a straight up suicide. I really don't. She has a desperation to her here that I didn't expect. When I pictured the scene of a girl who's just trying to punish her boyfriend, this isn't the kind of expression she was wearing when I imagined what that, you know what I mean? I'm picturing her behaving as if the whole thing's more of a prank. And I guess that's the problem when I think about what drama is, and when the quotes around the drama in people's lives, there is a gleeful aspect that I sort of assume is there. And maybe that's part of why it's so hard for me to understand people getting like swept up into it, because from the outside, it seems so obvious. That's not like the right thing to do, and you have to know that. So you're just making a bad choice here because it feels good in the moment, even though you know it's the wrong thing. But I forget the real emotion behind some of these choices, even though they are terrible choices. And certain people were not gifted with like the amount of self-awareness or the resources or the like self-knowledge to process feelings and make better choices for themselves as well as the people around them. So I'm looking at a girl who's extremely desperate and sad and grieving, clearly. And she's about to do something ridiculous that can't work. You know, it's like the kind of thing I'm like, do you really, if that had even gone to plan, would it have gone to plan? And I just want to like mock her because of the thought running through her head about how this was supposed to go. But I can't look into her eyes and mock her because she's too devastated. It's awful. So anyway, that whole thing, we'll come back to that, I'm sure. But here comes the scene where her dad comes to the restaurant and asks her whether or not that she took the sculpture. And she just says, no, what sculpture? And he says, right. God, good. You said no. And, that means I can go. And she says, all right. Great. And he walks out of there. He turns and just says, "Are you healthy?" And it's just one of those moments of like a person who doesn't interact with their child and has no understanding of what it looks like to interact with your child. And so, are you healthy? That's like, what kind of question is that, man? Like, what are you even doing? Are you an actuary? Like, talk to her. But no, he wants nothing to do with talking to her. He is so glad that she said no, and that this lets him off the hook. Now, I am of the opinion he's going to go home and say she said no. And his wife, her stepmom, is going to be disgusted both with him and with Fleabag, because she knows, of course she took, like, what? And we are going to literally never hear the end of this. I expect this statue is going to be brought up all the time, forever, from now on. That's fully what a person like her stepmom would do. Because I got the fucking vibe off of that lady. And passive aggression is the order of the day. And when you know somebody did some shit but you can't prove it, and you are a passive aggressive person, what you do, your solution, is to wear them down by never letting it drop, ever. Until they either admit it or they blow up at you, which is as good as admitting it. And at least you have that satisfaction. So I am waiting to see if this comes up again and exactly how it comes up again, because I fully expect this to not be over yet. We'll see. So then we have these two women who come in and they ask for hot organic-y foods. They've got like yoga mats and, you know, fitness outfits and stuff. And one of the girls asks for risotto. And she tells them, sure, grab a seat. And they go and sit down, and we cut to her at the market. And I'm assuming that this is not like her running out the back door to grab risotto while they're sitting at their table. But it is a weird moment of, how do you tell people that you have something like that if you don't? Like, just FYI, I really want to know what was supposed to have happened in this scene. Because if you've never made risotto before, you know. If you've never made it before, just so you know, it takes like 45 minutes. It's so tedious. It's a major reason why a dish that really isn't expensive is often purchased at restaurants instead of made at home, because it just takes so much time and you have to constantly stir. And it's just really... So how do you fake risotto when you don't actually have that on the menu? And it's certainly not organic, but it doesn't seem like these girls even know what it means. Is it just that she has risotto stocked already? Is that... How would she know anybody would even ask for that? Because it just doesn't look like what her place does sandwiches, right? That's it. I thought. I actually don't know. Now I'm realizing I don't really have a good grip on like her and what they serve at all. But anyway, yeah. So we see her, and this is when she grabs the risotto, but like I guess this is meant to have happened earlier, because we flash back to these women at the restaurant again. So I don't know. Did she jump out and like go shop while they were seated? Or is this a flashback to like earlier and she just happened to grab some? Whatever. She runs into the guy who she was fucking in the first episode. And he honestly is so attractive. He didn't do it for me in the first viewing. But here, casually leaning up against like the shelves, I was cracking up. I was just like, man, okay, you know what? I get it. Like, he's trying a little bit too hard, but nevertheless, it's still working. Like, not everybody can manage to try too hard, and it kind of, you know, but, yeah. So he basically is like, hey, tonight you want to fuck? And she's like, I absolutely do, because she's been talking about how she's a little bit obsessed with sex and can't stop thinking about it. And I know a lot of women, including myself, get this, where we're extra horny right before our period. And I don't know what that's about, but it's really fucking annoying sometimes, let me tell you. So she has had sex on the brain, and that is one of the things that happens right before her dad comes in earlier. She says the next man who walks through that door is getting ridden to death, and then it's him, and she's like, oh no. Ms. T says, I thought she shopped right then. Austin says, same. Gabriela says, yeah, I think she stepped out. God, really? The place is so small. I really wouldn't think that she'd even be able to do that without the two girls being like, where'd she go? I need more water. Like, you know, because she's not exactly rushing in this scene, but she also like doesn't give a shit about customer service, clearly. So I guess that's just completely a moot point. We have seen how little she gets. So these two women, they check, they're like sitting waiting for their food, and yeah, I guess that is it, because that's what's turning in the microwave. And they are in a relationship, it seems like, or at least like having an affair, and talking about having a kid, and the other woman saying, I have to leave him. And I'm just like, wow, what is going on over there? I want that fucking story. And all of a sudden they both hit the ceiling because there is a guinea pig on the floor, and they grab their stuff and they run out of there. And I was really surprised by their reaction, and I shouldn't be, because like a restaurant having a rodent running around, yeah, that's unhygienic, and but it's just so cute, and I just can't imagine being upset by this the way I probably should be. You know, like, I feel like this is a real, if Rashawn were here, she would be like, that's white people shit, because she is really like horrified by the fact that I let my cats jump on my dining table. I just can't keep them off it. Like, I just can't do it. When would I have the time to just patrol my table? And so I've given up trying, and I just have a tablecloth on there that I change out frequently. Or I just don't have a tablecloth and wipe the table down. I just deal with it. And so for me, an animal being around, I'm just like, yeah, fucking whatever. My cat is like pissing all over the house. You live with an animal, it's win some, lose some. But the way that these bitches hit the fucking ceiling, it's like they saw a rat. And I'm like, come on, man. It's got a whole collar on it, I think. Like, it's just obviously a little pet, and it's so cute. And this is when we see the thing from 2 years ago, the flashback of her giving Hillary, which is the name of the guinea pig, to her friend, telling her, I'm sorry, I panicked. And she says, as long as I can wear it or eat it, I'm happy. And she's like, you could do one or the other. And then she pulls little Hillary out of the box and says she's just something to love. And this scene is just so sweet. The way that she says, you idiot, and like shoves her. That is just such a friend moment to me, you know, of just like, I know that this makes no sense, but this is so you, and I completely love it and appreciate it because of that. And she says, I don't feel anything about guinea pigs. They're pointless, but Boo took Hillary very seriously as a gift, and soon everything became guinea pig related. And I just love the fact that she has decided to leave it all, because of course she would. Were they romantically involved? Because I can't tell. It feels like they were just friends most of the time. But then there's moments where I'm kind of like, was there more than that? And I don't know, maybe there was, but they like hadn't actually pursued it. I don't know. I'm sort of wondering if that's like, because she's looking at these two women talking to one another, and there's a vibe of like wistfulness to it when she's watching them. And it could just be the fact that they have someone, you know, each of them is like clearly into the other. But I don't know. I just feel like maybe there was something else going on. Austin says it's a fat tailless rat. You are. Shut up, Austin. I got that vibe as well. It's never said that, but I got that feeling. Yeah, I don't know. It feels more like maybe she was in love with Boo and it was just not really like something that either of them acknowledged, or they were in love with each other and they just didn't. It's a weird thing too, because I feel like because sexuality can be so sort of hard to pin down, that there are times where we aren't sure if we just really love somebody or like are attracted to them, you know? So like you don't know how to handle something. So we jump from there to this dude who she's fucking tonight. I love when he says sorry about the mess, even though the place is practically bare. And then, would you like some prosciutto with your wine? And he shoves it in her mouth and then starts kissing her, even though she still has the prosciutto in her. Like, it's not the time, dude. She's got cured meat. Let her chew and swallow. Give her a second. And there's a portrait of himself on his back wall that's like backlit. It's a lot. It's a lot, you guys. This dude. And she talks about how he'll get you into the bathtub and ask, what are you afraid of? And you find yourself saying things like, I guess losing the currency of youth. And he nods, looking like that was a serious, real answer. And then he says, ask me a question. And she says, when did you realize you were so good looking? And he says, I knew I was different when I was around 9, but shit got real around 11. And when she presses him on what that means, he says, you know, aunts got weird. I think this is a good time to have a sip of my drink. Nope. Don't like that. Yikes. Ugh. It's one of those things that it's actually kind of like refreshing to see a man say something like that instead of a woman. And I mean that in life and also in a script, because like that is a very real experience for a lot of young girls. Those are the first like males that they are constantly around when they're children, that they start getting different feedback from. And so that's a real fucking mood. And it's unfortunate. And she kind of grimaces in this like, oh shit way. And he asks, do you ever feel lonely? And she says, of course, do you? And he looks a little bit perplexed and just says, never. And then just gets up and offers her some pineapple. And it's really, oh my God, this guy. It's one of those things that I cannot decide if he's sincere. I think he is, which is almost worse. Do you know what I mean? This is the kind of guy that would like really think that he was having a deep conversation when he was stoned. It would. My friend Cindy came over the other night, and Money came to visit a few weeks ago and brought some edibles as a generous gift and left them. And so me and my friend Sydney split one, and I weigh more than her and did not take into account the fact that likely I should give her a smaller dosage than I was taking. And she got a little bit wacky and she started to say shit and then be like, oh my God, that's good. And then she'd stop and literally like write it down. And I was like, I never saw anybody actually do that. And then this episode, we have this guy and we have the fight that she winds up having with Harry later, where that happens twice. And I was fucking dying because I never saw people do that. And then we've got that happening a couple times. And with both of them, it feels very sincere. But yeah, there's this moment when she's like riding him too, where he's talking about how tiny her tits are. And she doesn't know how to take that because he's saying it like it's a turn on. But of course, to her, it's like incredibly insulting. Where the fuck even are they? And she says, bit much. Oh my God. But it cuts directly from there to her having called Harry. And Madame Ovary is telling me to run back to a safe space. And yet she does wind up calling Harry, and she brings him the dinosaur that she found, that she knows that he always leaves. And he is such a fucking dope, you guys. I feel so bad for him, but I also despise him. You know, his fucking square face and his eyes that fill with tears at the drop of a hat. And he looks like a giant 12-year-old. It's just too goddamn much. And he was watching Cats, but yeah, he left early because he just felt like nothing good was going to happen to them. And I'm like, I don't know what you think Cats is, sir. I mean, the whole thing is about how they're all longing for death. Don't get me wrong. But he has this idea that they're all going to be massacred or something. I don't know. So anyway, this is taken as an invitation to come over, which it clearly is. And then we jump to her getting ridden by him. And it is the most tedious, boring sex I've ever seen. Oh my God. To the point where she winds up just shoving him off her and masturbating by herself. And he keeps trying to like sort of interfere. And she just keeps shoving him off her so that she can finally finish. And that can be a real mood, especially as a woman. It can just be like, I am so on the brink and you are so nowhere close that I just need to, please just let me do this. And I can understand how that could be really insulting. But sometimes a girl's got to do what a girl's got to do, man. And there is nothing quite like when as you get older, especially like when I was younger, I didn't really know what I was missing because I didn't know my body very well. So I didn't even understand how to give myself like a clitoral orgasm, you know? And once you start to realize what you've been missing, it feels like you've just wasted so much time. So as a woman, you start to just be like, I'm going to come. I don't care if I hurt your feelings. God damn it. I have missed out too many times in my life and I'm not doing it anymore. So I feel her on that. But also she literally shoves him off her and there's no reason he couldn't be a little involved. At least be making out with him at the same time. You know, like something. But no. And this results in the next morning him saying, I think that we should stop masturbating and that I hid our vibrators are. I think it would help us focus. A lot of successful couples do it. And she's obviously super uninterested. But yeah, he wants to do this thing where they each surprise one another. So between that and the vibrator thing, she has an inkling that maybe he's like reading a relationship book or something, which maybe he is. I don't know. But he tells her he's going to surprise her, so don't eat too much before dinner. And then he kneels and says, and I'll see you later too, to her pussy. I hate it. That's all I'll say about that. So the surprise thing that winds up happening later, she had forgotten about it. And so she decides to do something to keep things fresh, which is grab a butcher knife from the kitchen and disguise herself as a masked intruder, which results in him very nearly having a fucking panic attack in the shower. I don't know what that was about. It's one of those scenes where it's really funny, but also like, what? Oh my God. he says that was really horrible. And she says it was a surprise. And he says, I know, thank you. And sobs. Ah, kid, you need to get in therapy. So she goes and steals some wine from the corner store and runs home. Wow. The guy's like chasing after her, saying, this is the last time I know where you live. And by the time she gets home, he has gone through her computer search history, because I guess they had agreed no more masturbation, but she has searched a variety of things, and he realizes that she has been flouting their agreement, even though I think that was only earlier this morning. So, yeah, and it's actually, it's his computer. I forgot that was the thing. So she used his computer to do it, which feels extra like you had to know he was going to find this. You couldn't even use a private browser. Come on, girl. Small tits, hentai, big butts, lesbian, gay, facial, fetish, bukkake, young, old, swallow, rough, voyeur, and public. And he looks devastated. And I just feel so bad because she could find somebody who would be all about this. You know, I'm not trying to hate on her searches. God knows what mine fucking look like. And she is instead staying with this incredibly sensitive dude to whom this matters a great deal, who is not okay with it. And she's ruining both their times. But she's just... I think the fact that she doesn't respect him makes it easier for her. Do you know what I mean? And that can certainly be true. When you want to feel in control of a situation, you choose people that you feel are easy to control, which are usually people that you don't respect very much, because if you did, you wouldn't treat them that way. So you find people that you kind of maybe a little bit despise. And those are the folks that you keep around you because they're easy to handle. And there's a vibe of that with her. And like, speaking of control issues, her sister later, she plants it that her brother-in-law is planning a surprise party, but then her sister takes the thing over entirely. Comes and asks permission to take it over, but then it turns out she's done it already, which I found so relatable. And so it's clear that the both of them have this a little bit, but it really manifests in entirely different ways with each of them. With her sister, the control thing really manifests as like being so put together as to be, okay, you're not okay. And with her, it's like controlling minor and totally irrelevant elements of her life while the rest of her life falls apart. Because those are the things that make her feel better and give her the temporary illusion that she's got some control over things. It's weird. So this whole thing, this is when he says, don't make me hate you. Loving you is painful enough. And she says, okay, sorry. I know that this is inappropriate, but I think you should really write that down. You really should. It's really good for your songs and stuff. I'm serious. It's perfect. It's poetic, yet real, serious. And he looks like he can't decide if she's being honest or not. And I can't decide if she's being honest or not. I think part of her is, but I think that she knows that this is a really good way to diffuse things and distract him too. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'm giving her too much credit. But the two of them, it feels like everything they do is this like dance that they've done before. None of it's spontaneous. And I think that's part of what his like sad effort at surprising each other is supposed to be, is trying to break out of their patterns in a way. And this is when he says, there's someone at work who loves me. Well, she told me she loves me, and I said we couldn't be together because I had to know. Do you want to be alone? And she doesn't have an answer. She just looks at the floor. And he has this towel on his head and he yanks it off and he says, then you'll never see me again. I'll always love you, but I just can't take it anymore. I don't hate you. I'm scared for you. And then he stops and writes that down. And she's saying this whole time, first of all, the fact that he stops and writes it down, she's really smug about. And then a few minutes later, when he's leaving, she gets very smug again. And he says, I'm really mean at this time. I'm really going. I'm going to pack my things up again. I'm not going to clean. It's still in pretty good shape. If I don't see you after that, goodbye. She glances at the camera and says, he'll be back. And then he stalks back inside and grabs the dinosaur and leaves. And that's really the moment where it's like, he really is leaving. And she isn't taking it seriously at this moment because she has done this so many times that she doesn't believe him. But as he does that, there's a vibe that means something to her, and she's realizing that she's like actually fucked up. But that's the end of the episode, is her just like looking at the camera with this sort of like, and good. The two of them are super terrible together. They need to be broken up. He's such a disaster. He needs to be in therapy. He doesn't need to be in another relationship. He needs to get his life. And so does she. Honestly, that's what it comes down to in so many things I talk about. It's just like everybody in this needs counseling and guidance and like an objective third party to look at this and be like, are you serious? What? So that's this episode. I feel like there was so much of this where I was just like, oh my God, I hated this. Like, I don't mean that I hated it. You know what I mean? It was just really uncomfortable. But I am really enjoying the show itself. So let's see. We've got, the next episode is Tuesday, March 9th. So 2 weeks from now. Or no, 1 week from now. Like a little over a week. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens in 3. But thank you guys again so much for hanging out with me. Thank you, Gabriela, for commissioning this episode. I hope that you guys have been enjoying the coverage. I really hope that, like, you know, it's only like 22-minute long episodes, and I'm having to talk about them for an hour. So it can be a little bit hard sometimes for me to feel like am I just filling time? But I don't think so. I talk a lot, and it just sort of works out. So hopefully it doesn't feel like I'm going on too many tangents, because if I didn't, this episode would be half as long, right? Does that make sense? All right. I'm just going to go. Thank you guys again, and I will see you in a week and a half. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.